not everyone is wired for business, but everyone has a business to execute. For anyone who really feels that I should be starting something, don't just resign just because you feel a push to go and do something. Preparation is very important. Yes, welcome to the Wisdom Talks. I'm Joe Wisdom, and this is a wonderful, wonderful moment. We had taken a break on business. We were dealing on matters, relationships, but right now we are back on business and personal development. Remember what we always say, that your business will never outgrow you. Anytime your business outgrows you, that business will go down, because you are the face of your business. You are the heart of your business. And today we want to continue to look at how we can grow our lives. And by business here, I mean growing what you have been assigned to do, growing who you are, because your business is what God have deposited in your heart. If you are in ministry, ministry is your business. If you are selling goods and services, maybe you have a kiosk somewhere, or you have whichever thing that you are doing, that is your business. That is why actually when you look at Jesus, he was asked, when the disciples were asking him, whether he has eaten anything, he said, my food is doing the will of he who sent me. At some other point, he said, don't you know that I'm in my Father's business? I am in my Father's business. So business is what puts food on your table. And there's a demand for us to identify. There's a demand for us to align and realign ourselves so that we can be doing what we have been assigned to do. Remember, you are not wired to do everything. You are not wired to do everything. There's what you are wired. There's what your heart is wired to do. And when you identify what your heart is wired to do, you do it with gladness. You do it with gladness. I know there are two things that we do in life. There are things that we do for money. There are things that we do for a living. And there are other things that we do for life. What you do for a living is basically maybe what you are doing to survive. Maybe you have bills to pay. You don't just want to stay at home doing nothing. You have demands of life. And at some point, you need to get some money. And therefore, you land on any job. That is why you find yourself doing things that you never thought you could do. But you see, that is not the end of life. There are so many people who are doing what they don't like doing, or they don't love doing, they don't enjoy doing. But they are basically doing that because of their demand, because of the demands of life. Let me tell you, especially for those who are in employment, the best time to prepare for war is when there is peace. When you are still in employment, when you are still earning something, when you can still think soberly, that is the right time to prepare for that other season. That is the time you should be preparing to manage or for your transition. Remember, there is nothing like a smooth transition. Every transition comes with shakeups. And because I'm speaking about how we can grow what God have assigned us to do, or what God has deposited in us, and how to identify and thrive in that particular area, we want you to know that maybe possibly you are doing what you are doing because that is what you studied in school. But inside you, there is something that tells you, I am more than this. I was created for more than this. I would want to do something more than what I'm doing right now. If you are doing such calculations in your spirit and you feel a deep conviction that there is something that you're supposed to be doing out there, this is the right time to begin managing or thinking about your transition and preparing for that transition. So for anyone who really feels that I should be starting something, don't just resign just because you feel a push to go and do something. Preparation is very important. You need to prepare. I remember sometimes that I think somehow I gave my story of how I was in employment. At some point I read two books. There's a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, who gave me one book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And after reading that book, the moment I finished reading that book, I resigned. Actually, I never reported to work the next morning. I never even wrote a resignation letter because the book was basically firing me up. The book was inciting me. How would be my boss? How can my boss be making millions when he is paying me peanuts? You know, and when you read that book, you realize that there is a story of the rich dad and the poor dad. And the rich dad was not this possibly intellectually, intelligent man, but someone who was an average, a man of average capacity, but he went into business. The poor, that is the rich dad. The poor dad again was a professional, a man who was used to a daily job, going, reporting to work. And when these two people, when you try to compare the two people, you feel like asking yourself, why did you go to school? But let me tell you, ignorance is not a defense. Even in business, you need to be intellectually, sharp. But again, it's all about the capacity that you have. And I keep saying that not everyone is wired for business. But everyone has a business to execute. Everyone has a business to execute. Because even those who are not doing a particular business, they are basically in another man's business. So you are either in your own business or in another man's business. So when we say that you are not wired for business, sometimes we take it to sometimes it can be deemed to mean that maybe you are not wired for the buying and selling of goods and services. That's what most people mean. But you can sell. You can basically sell even your gift. We have people who are in music. We have people who are doing other things, public speakers. We have others who are basically selling their rights. So you must know what you carry, because anytime you don't know what you carry, there will always be a problem. We say that whatever remain unrecognized, remain uncelebrated. So you need to identify the energies that you have. You need to identify the passion that you have. You need to identify the areas that you flow easily. Because there are people who are basically struggling in what they do. You can struggle, but you have the joy of continuing doing what you are doing. People are basically struggling in things that they have no clue. There is always an easy way when you master your area of calling. Not everyone is wired to sell goods. There are some who are wired to sell services. So in whichever way, you are still in business. And there are people who are struggling because they are selling the wrong things. Whenever you are selling something, there is always a witness in your spirit that this is what I am supposed, because creativity is activated in your area of calling, your areas of anointing, your areas, the areas that you are graced in, you easily flow. Actually, you find yourself as a consultant in your area of gifting, in your area of calling, in your area of assignment. You thrive, you don't survive. You become an authority in that area. So our biggest question is, have you identified? And if you have identified, then are you in that line? Or are you still waiting for that time where you'll be sacked from your place of work, where what you are doing will begin going down, and that's when you begin to feel the threat of doing something else? The best time to prepare for war is when there is peace. When you are still sober. Many people revert to business when they fail or when they are sacked from their places of work. But when you're still sober, you can begin thinking about what you are wired to do. Actually, there are so many people who are still in employment that they are gifted, graced businessmen. And there's someone who is basically surviving in business where he's supposed to be a career civil servant, a professional, a consultant. But because your friends are making a lot of money in business, therefore you just get into business. Always desire to be the best version of you. Always desire to be your best version. Because nobody can replace you. Nobody can do what you're wired to do better than you. When you master your area of anointing, you don't survive, you thrive. You don't go looking for money, money begin looking for you. So the wisdom of this package today is that seek to identify what you are wired to do. Go to the place where your joy is fulfilled. And for them that now want to begin that journey, it is not always easy to begin. There is always a price to be paid. But where will you ever grow without paying the price? The issue is, are you willing to pay the price now, or do you want to pay the price later? This is the best time to pay the price. This is the best time to pay the price. This is your best season to do what you have always desired to do. Just sit down, connect with the people who matters. You can connect with someone who have gone ahead of you and speak to them about what you are thinking to do. Then, by God's grace, they'll be able to direct you and give you counsel on how to transit. If you are thinking of transition and transiting into your next level in life, there's someone that God is preparing to guide you. And most importantly, seek God's will and God's counsel. Proverbs 3, 5 and 6 says that trust in the Lord in all that you do. Lean not in your own understanding. Lean not in your own understanding. But in all your ways, acknowledge him, and he is going to direct your path. I am Joe Wisdom, and that is Wisdom Talks.